Hey book lovers, want to hear a story? Welcome back to Storytime with M. This is a bonus episode from M's Books and Cats podcast, where I am sharing my book feelers, a chapter, or sometimes two, a week. And this week is a 2-chapter week. So please enjoy chapter 22 and 23 of Feelers. Chapter 22. I woke up in another golden room. Bright sunlight streamed in from large round windows near the ceiling. The ceiling itself was ornate and bore a detailed mural featuring beautiful women in their glory, dancing wildly around the sun. Good morning, Hesta. That voice. How often it had invaded my dreams. I sat up and there she was, sitting on an overstuffed golden chair, watching me sleep. Misha. My throat was dry and my tongue was swollen. Her name hurt coming out. She smiled as I winced in pain. Misha uncrossed her legs with a flourish and gripped the curved arms of the chair to push herself up to standing. She glided swiftly across the room to stand beside the bed. My body began to tingle, as if it were filled with millions of tiny insects. I burned from the inside, and I was unable to move. My body radiated heat, and my vision was blurred by a bright golden glow. Through the brilliant haze, I could see Misha smile brightly. Welcome to my home. She placed a hand on my shoulder and pushed me back on the bed. My body buzzed. It grew hotter and hotter. I wanted to move so badly. I struggled a bit but gave up quickly. No use wasting my energy. A powerful magic held me in place. I wasn't going anywhere. The weight on my chest grew heavier. My lungs could not fully inflate. My breath came in small, short sips and did not help at all. My lungs burned with an intense fire. My body begged for air. Misha's face hovered over mine. You understand now? The strength of my power? She released me, and the sudden withdrawal washed over me in a cool wave of relief. I sighed. You understand. Her voice was harsher now. No cooing and coddling. No emotion at all. I nodded. Yes, I rasped with a painful voice. I understand. She sat down on the edge of the bed and placed her hand on my thigh. Her touch was uncomfortably warm. A flash of anger passed over her face, but then she smiled kindly. I knew you were one of my girls. Her voice was syrupy and affectionate, but her eyes told a different story. She was watching me closely. I put a small, sleepy smile on my face and rose up onto an elbow. Even that made me dizzy, and I struggled to maintain my expression of calm disinterest. Where am I? How did I get here? Misha knew it was an act, but she wasn't certain. There was some doubt, a chink in her armor. Good to know. Misha, where's Neil? Her head jerked slightly. I'd knocked her off balance. Her expression was annoyed. She made an irritated sound. Yes, how could I forget that you brought the enemy directly into my kingdom? Is he the last thing you remember? She didn't know. Something told me not to mention Gwen or Kaya or anything after the attack by the strange man. Yes, I said hesitantly. Neil and I arrived in this beautiful golden land, and then this man attacked us. I paused for a moment, scrunching my face a little as if in thought. That's all I can remember. I put a hand to my face. My head hurts. Misha gave me a sympathetic look. Poor girl. Rest. I'll have something sent for the pain. We'll talk later, and I'll explain everything. She glided to a panel in the ornate golden wall, and it slid open as she approached. She paused and looked at me with a smile. I've been looking forward to this, Hesta. Welcome home, my dear girl. She slipped out of the room and the door slid shut behind her. Another click told me that, while opulent and comfortable, this room was nothing more than a golden prison cell. Misha returned sometime later. I assumed it was after dinner. The meal brought to me by a pretty girl in a golden robe had resembled a hearty evening meal, but there was no way to know for sure. "Hello, Hesta, dear," she said warmly. The girl had also brought a second golden chair. Padded and soft, I sank into its opulence and passed the time sitting in front of the cold fireplace. Misha took the other chair and pulled it close to mine. With a casual wave, she ignited a small crackling fire. The reddish light glittered off the walls and cast everything in an orange glow. "Feeling better?" "Yes, thank you," I said politely and nodded. The girl had first appeared not long after Misha's departure and brought a small golden cup filled with warm, fragrant liquid. She stood and watched me drink it down before collecting the cup and scurrying away. The pain had instantly left my body, leaving behind a gentle hum in my veins. I didn't feel completely comfortable drinking a random concoction from Misha, but I didn't have a choice. The girl was quiet and unassuming, but she gave off an air of ferocious loyalty. She did not like me. Her distaste was obvious, though she masked it with a subdued smile. Misha smiled and patted my hand. "I'm so glad you're here. I feared when your mother brought you to Silent Trees that all was lost." She glanced at me, but I kept my face blank. "I had your father under control, of course. Men are easy. Women can't be swayed once they've chosen a side." I still didn't respond. The churning sensation in my guts was frighteningly intense. It took all of my effort to keep my face neutral. Misha examined me a moment longer. "How did you manage to escape Silent Trees? Their security is top-notch. No one has ever escaped." Neil helped me. I could feel her searching me, looking for the truth. I put up a wall between her probing presence and my mind. She narrowed her eyes but didn't speak. I tried to keep my face innocent as we stared at each other. After a moment, she sat back in her chair with a sigh. "Neil, Neil, Neil." She gave me a look and winked at me. "Have a little crush? You feelers are all the same. So much useless emotion." She stood up and paced the room angrily. "You are starborn. Do you understand? None of you have any idea. Your powers are incredible. They're unmatched. If properly harnessed, you could end the war tomorrow." "War?" Misha rolled her eyes at my question. "They really keep you sheltered at that place, don't they? Yes, there's a war. There's always been a war. Since our time began. 3 sides. The golden ones, the cold, cruel scientists from the wellness centers, and the dregs." "The dregs?" "The idiots who go against the parties. They want something insane. Who even knows what they want? To cause trouble for the rest of us. That's all they're capable of." She returned to her chair and leaned in close to me. "You must be careful around the dregs. They'll kidnap and torture you." "Why? What do they want from me?" Misha leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smirk. "You really are clueless, aren't you? You, my dear, are the key. The end of this endless war. Something special. You're different. You know that. Let's not pretend anymore. I'm tired of it." She clapped her hands and the panel slid open. The girl entered with a tray. Misha removed the 2 tall glasses and the girl backed out of the room. She handed me a glass. It was cold in my hand and the pale yellow liquid inside smelled heavenly and vaguely familiar. She held up her glass. "Here's the deal, my dear. You're different. You're special. A starborn." She touched her glass to mine and smiled. "Some starborn are different from the others. Special. They become the chosen ones. The golden goddesses. My girls." She took a drink and motioned for me to do the same. The first small sip burned pleasantly down my throat, and I took a larger swallow. Misha waved her hand and the fire grew. The room became unbearably hot almost immediately. "It is not easy to be different," Misha said. She placed her hand on my knee. Her touch burned. Sweat dripped down my face in steady streams, and an uncomfortable buzzing filled my body until every molecule hummed. She pulled her hand away suddenly and everything stopped. The fire went out in a plume of golden smoke. My body fell back against my chair and convulsed, but I felt detached, as if watching it all from somewhere above. Misha frowned, her brow furrowed, and she tossed her head back indignantly. You may fight it for a while, but it will not ease the discomfort. Change requires pain, but the reward makes it all worthwhile. You're a golden goddess, Hesta, one of my chosen ones. You simply need to transform. I was somehow both inside my body and floating above. From the outside, I could see clearly. Misha's radiant beauty was a projection. Her true face was ancient and scarred. Her touch was death. She would siphon my life away, feeding on it and gaining strength until I died and moved on to my final form. I don't want to. My voice came out as a harsh whisper, but Misha reacted as if I had slapped her. Her head snapped back and then she leaned in close. You don't have any other choice, she hissed. Spittle flew from her lips and sprayed my cheek. The boy is dead. Soon they all will be. Science is no match for my power now that I have you. She sat back in her chair and gave me a sweet smile. I would prefer you did this willingly. So much energy is wasted in fighting the inevitable. She stood and moved to the wall. The panel slid open. Misha turned to look at me. I could see both sides, the sweet golden facade and her dark insides. In both, the smile she gave me was chilling. I'll give you some time to think about it, but I do hope you'll make your decision quickly. Those monsters at Silent Trees will pay for what they did to you. Consider that. She winked and disappeared behind the panel. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I rejoined my body with a jolt. It felt like an electric shock shooting up my spine. I sighed with relief at the feeling of being whole again. A heaviness was rapidly settling over me. I felt my eyes closing. My head nodded. With great effort, I snapped it back up and forced my eyes open. The panel slid open and the girl in gold entered. She crossed to me quickly and took the glass from my hand. My eyelids were so heavy. I fought to keep them open, but I was losing the battle. The girl's arm encircled my waist, and I felt her hot breath on my cheek. Rest, she said in a low voice. You are safe for now. Safe or not, I could not fight it any longer. The heaviness filled me, and I slipped away into sleep in the girl's embrace. Chapter 23. I woke some time later with a splitting headache and severe dry mouth. There was a bitter, acrid taste on my tongue. I sat up to look for something to drink, but I moved too fast. The room spun and the pounding in my head intensified. I vomited suddenly and violently, barely making it over the edge of the bed. As it hit the floor, a panel in the wall slid open, and the girl appeared, carrying a large pitcher of water and a glass. She wrinkled her nose at the mess and set the pitcher down on a table near the wall. She remained as far as she could from the bed. Come here and drink some water. You'll feel better. I'll have someone take care of this while you get cleaned up. My legs were wobbly as I climbed out of bed and tottered to the door. My curiosity was piqued. Beyond the walls of my golden cell was a long, ornate hallway lit with candles. The pale gold tiles were cool under my bare feet. The water she gave me was cold and refreshing. My stomach protested a little at first, but the water soothed it. It brought my body temperature down, and the relief I felt made me realize just how hot I had been in my opulent jail. I followed the girl down the hall, mesmerized by the glittering candlelight and the dancing shadows in between. She didn't speak, and I was concentrating on keeping my legs solid beneath me. I followed without asking questions, stumbling forward and taking in everything I could of my surroundings. The girl paused in the shadows between two candles. The candles alternated sides for the length of the hallway, leaving very few dark places, but one candle was missing. In this pool of darkness, I could just make out the shimmer of her golden robe. She pushed back the large hood, which usually hid her face, and revealed a face I recognized. At first I couldn't place her, but when she lightly touched my hand with her slim fingers, it all came flooding back. My friend from Silent Trees. The nameless one who dared to make eye contact with me. The one who touched me and started this madness. Even as I thought it, I knew I didn't believe that. I was born different. Whatever this girl had done had only accelerated the process. The end would be the same. She looked different now. She was taller, with long reddish hair down past her waist. She wore it tucked up in her hood, and it tumbled down as she revealed herself. Her hair caught the candlelight and seemed to reflect it back in a burnt orange glow. Her eyes were the same, large and green and innocent. Maybe less so since the last time I'd seen her, but we'd both been through a lot since then. She squeezed my hand with her small white fingers. "It's nice to see you again, friend," she whispered. "I see you recognize me, even in my third incarnation." "Third?" "Of course," she said softly. "All golden goddesses are third incarnations. A beautiful end to this long, weary life." Her eyes were damp with unshed tears. "I don't see what's beautiful about it. How did you get to it so fast?" She shrugged and tried to smile, but she was tired. It showed in the small signs of worry around her eyes. It showed in her pale face, which was marred with bright pink splotches on her fevered cheeks. She sighed and released my hand. She held out her arms so I could take in her radiant beauty. She was beautiful. Her exhaustion could not mask it. She glowed from within, a true angel of love and light. "3 deaths," she said softly. "We Starborn are allowed 3 chances. Some will have a longer run than others. In some ways, I am lucky to have arrived here so early. The Tower of the Golden is a luxurious home, when I'm not waiting on a second-tier Starborn dreg." Her voice hardened on the last part and her eyes narrowed. "Come on," she commanded. "You've wasted enough of my time." We didn't move from the shadows. She held up her hand to me and I waited. She slid open a panel and ushered me through. She followed close behind me and slipped the panel quietly back into place. "Sorry about that," the girl said in a bright voice. She crossed into a small, crowded room and flopped down on a silver cushion. I took a moment to take in the cramped space. It was warm and dusty, but not unpleasant. 2 crooked bookshelves rose up to the ceiling and leaned precariously over the plush, overstuffed furniture. The shelves were packed full of more books than I could ever imagine. I touched one. The cover was smooth and worn with age. "What is this place?" I couldn't keep the awe from my voice. The girl smiled. "I knew you'd like it. This is a library, an old one. I found it one day while I was cleaning. I think they built the tower over an old building, a library from the ancient times. Can you believe it?" She ran her hands lovingly over a stack of books piled on the floor beside her chair. She motioned to another comfortable chair stacked with plush pillows. "Sit. We're safe for now. Misha is gone for the day. The other girls keep to their own wings. No one will bother us today." She put her feet up on a small table, knocking over a stack of papers that looked very, very old. "I had to work hard to get assigned to you," she said. "I had to get Misha to trust me, which is an almost impossible task." "But you accomplished it." She smiled at that. "For now. Misha's trust comes and goes in waves, and I fear when the tide goes out." The expression on her face kept me silent. We sat that way for a while. Finally, the girl sighed and stood up. "We should get back to your room. No doubt they've cleaned it by now. We won't be able to come here again. I fear we may have been spotted before out in the hallway." I wondered about the sudden mood swing. She pressed her lips together into a tight white line. "Even when Misha is not here, she can sometimes see. There is a presence. You can feel it if you know what to look for." Her hands made tight fists at her sides, and she closed her eyes. She shook her head slightly and opened them again. She stared off into space over my shoulder, and a wistful look crossed her face. "If I can make it back here, I will," she said softly. "If she already knows and this is my end, well, at least I did what I knew to be right." She focused on my face again and seemed to remember I was there. I'm going to get you out of here. Your friends are waiting. Gwen and Kaya. The dregs. I met them once in the forest and they overpowered me. They showed me kindness and let me live. I swore my allegiance to them and have done what I can for their cause. Why? It was all I could think to say as I processed this new information. The girl looked down sadly and squeezed her small white hands together. I don't think my side is right. Misha made me, and she owns a part of me I can never reclaim. I will never leave this place. I've made peace with that, but you still have a chance. If I can get you out of here before Misha processes you, you'll still have a chance. What is her process? I asked. The word sent chills down my spine. The girl met my eye once more, and the look there left me filled with dread. It's the worst thing imaginable. She paused and shuddered, staring at something I could not see. And it hurts more than all of the punishments and tests at Silent Trees combined. Her words hung in the air. I didn't know what else to say. I couldn't imagine a pain worse than some of my days at the wellness center, and I knew I needed to shut it out of my mind. No use worrying about that now. If I got out, I wouldn't even have to experience it. The girl slid the panel open, and we slipped back into the hallway. She peered around the darkness until she was satisfied we were safe. She tucked her gorgeous hair back up into her hood, and we walked back to my room in silence. As I stepped past her into my room, I briefly brushed my fingers against hers. Thank you, I murmured as I passed. My name is Elena, she whispered, and the panels slid shut between us. Elena, my oldest friend and newfound ally. As I slipped back into my luxurious bed, I thought about those fleeting moments back at Silent Trees. We had decided to trust one another based on a glance, a brief moment of contact. Her touch changed everything. Now my life was in her hands once again, and all I could do was wait. And that's the end of Chapter 23, book lovers. I hope you're still enjoying Feelers. I will be back next week with Chapter 24. Until then, keep reading.